Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the presentation today. Today we're going to be talking about Therap's eligibility module, and we will get into that for a moment. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jeffrey Covington. I am the Director of State Implementation, and I have helped successfully implement the eligibility module in a few states. Joining me today is my colleague, Leah Sewell, who is our Associate Director of State Implementation, and she has also worked with several states in implementing eligibility. So you have two self-proclaimed experts on the eligibility module based on our dealings with several states, including South Carolina, Rhode Island, South Dakota, and Alabama. So with that, we're going to start the presentation. You're all on mute. At the end of the presentation, I will allow you the ability to unmute yourselves and we can ask questions. However, in the interim, if you wish to ask questions, you can. I'm going to show you a real brief slideshow here. Show my screen. And so if you have any questions, there is a panel here on your box, your I don't know what you want to call this, your toolbar. And there's a questions pane, so you can open that up right here. Oops, questions. And you open that up and you can type your question in there. Okay, and one of two things will happen. We will, depends on how far along we are and how busy we are. Leah may answer those questions to you on the in that questions chat, or I may pause and read a question aloud and answer it out loud. Okay, well, that depends on what the question is and where we are in the presentation and those type of things. Okay. All right, so let me close that. And get rid of this. And let's go into our dashboard. Leah, can you confirm that you can see the dashboard, the first page, okay?
We sure can.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to show you the eligibility module in this fictitious state oversight account for the great state of South Carolina. So South Carolina was our first customer to use our eligibility module, and they continue to use it today. They've used it for probably the past 3 years, and we trained all of their providers how to do that. I don't know if some of you, and you can do an eligibility module in any account. So it could be we have a state oversight, we have a private oversight, and there's also probably, which many of you have, are the provider accounts. You can do eligibility in any type of account that we have. We have it configured as a really good example for the state of South Carolina. So we tend to use that as an example when we do demonstrations of that module functionality. All right, so I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom of my first page. All right, we'll come down here to the eligibility matrix. And you'll see a few things here. As you'll see in a moment, many people like the eligibility module because it is highly configurable and customizable. So you're going to see here in a moment when we go through the module, there are a lot of drop downs, and you can configure those drop downs yourself, right? It's not something that you can, you have to wait for Therap to do. It's not something that is a default. There is one field that is a default. We'll get to that when we do, but for the most part, you are able to configure the module to your specifications and liking. All right. You'll also see, so that's the template. So that's how you create an eligibility template. Then there's the eligibility module itself. And those of you that are familiar with the to-do tab, this matrix here operates the same way. Eligibility is a 3-step process. start it, submit it. Once it's submitted, it's pending review. It's then reviewed by a reviewer. Then it is passed on for approval. And then the third step is the approval process. Okay. So let's go in here and do one. So we go to eligibility and new. You find an individual. One of the great things about this module is you can do this module on people who are in pending admission status. Some of our modules you can't use until somebody is admitted, but the eligibility module you can use on somebody who's in pending admission status. In many of the states that we work with, admission into the Therap account is synonymous with being eligible. So therefore, you can do eligibility on people who are in pending admission status. Once that eligibility is completed and they are found or deemed to be eligible, you can then go in and admit the individual. And then you can begin doing some of the other modules. Here at the top in the demographic matrix, you'll see that there's several pieces of information that come over from the individual demographics. The name, their oversight ID, which is a unique identifier, their date of birth, social security number, Medicaid number, the date of birth is converted to an age, and then the gender. Okay. Then you come down here and you do the eligibility request. All right. So you choose a date of when the eligibility was requested. How you get that eligibility request will vary. Sometimes a packet is mailed in and it's the date that either was on the application or the date that was stamped on the envelope when it was received. You may get them through a web portal, and the date that they were submitted on the web portal would be that eligibility request date. So again, doesn't really matter what you use for the date as long as it's consistent. So you use that same date syntax configuration for everybody. Then you want to do the requested eligibility category. This list is configurable by you. So these are the different eligibility category types in South Carolina. So you would pick one of those. Okay. And we'll say an intellectual disability. Okay. Now we're going to scroll past the decision and come down here to the document checklist. Okay. And basically what this is if you think about it in paper terms, a packet of information. What type of information does the person who's going to determine this individual's eligibility need to determine their eligibility? All right. This list is your list. You configure this list. We do that for you. You give us what you want and we set it up. Okay. So you see here, we have all of these different forms. You'll see some of them have required in parentheses after it, such as this authorization to obtain information. Unfortunately, we do not have the ability to make attachments required, but you can put that required notation there. All right. You can scan it from a scanner, or you can add it from document storage, or you can add it from your hard drive. Okay. And we'll go here to find that folder. I have a bunch of fake uploads. There we go. And you'll pick one of these. Stick that in there. All right. And we upload it. All right, and there it sits. All right. So there you have that. And again, you go through and you add all these documents. I think showing you just once is sufficient. You have another down here as well. Okay, you add as many others as you'd like if they don't fit that broad category. All right. Once all that is done, you can submit it, save it. Sorry, save it first. Update it. Go back to the form. And submit for review. Okay. I'll go back to my dashboard. Update. Now I'll come back down to the eligibility matrix. And we have 3 in draft. What happened here? There we go. Pending review. So I have a 1 prompt next to my pending review, and that's going to be that eligibility I just submitted for Royce. All right. Now the reviewer is going to open this back up. And again, it might be the same person doing all 3 steps. There's nothing wrong with that, depending on what your workflow is. All right. So now the reviewer is going to go in. You're going to come down here. They could return it, right? Let's say, for example, one of these documents that was required wasn't on there. I could return it. Okay. But they also can edit it. So at this point, that reviewer, and again, it may vary. I'm talking about a kind of a specific workflow for some of our states. The reviewer now goes in and reviews this eligibility request. Okay. So what are they going to do? First of all, they can look at the documents that were attached. All they have to do is download it. All right. All right, and they would look through the attached documentation. That's going to help them make that eligibility determination. All right, so look through all those documents. We have a module called a questionnaire. Some of you may be familiar with a questionnaire if you use it for tracking temperature checks and outside visitors or staff during the COVID-19 crisis. But a questionnaire is a module where you can write questions, choose what kind of answer type there is, and you can attach that to certain documents. Eligibility is one such document. Case note is another. Fairly soon, it's going to be available on the ISP plan. All right. But basically, it is your means of gathering information that's not available in the eligibility module, or maybe not part of the attachment, or it may be questions based on the attachment that you can see more clearly, and I'll show you what that looked like. So we're going to open it, all right, and we have this question. So, question number 1, related disability. So I have a drop down. I can choose one of these. Okay, and we'll say Prader-Willi syndrome, save and next. Other related disability. So if that answer isn't in the drop down in 1, you write it here. I don't need to do that, so I'm just going to go to the next question. Similar disability, again, a drop down. All right, I'm going to skip that one. All right, skip all these, I guess. All right, autism, what was the method for diagnosing them with autism? All right. Intellectual testing, identify the testing range. Borderline, moderate, profound. All right, so you're going to go through and answer, you can answer all these intellectual testing, adaptive testing. Okay. Intake billing. So it's the baby net rate. All right. So you go through now, not the best example in the world because your answer to a question in a questionnaire can take any form you want. And if we get a chance, we'll look at it later. It could be a date. It could be an attachment. It could be short text. It could be long text. Could be a drop down. It could be a radio button where you choose only one. It could be a check box, which means you select multiple answers to the question. So you go through with that. Anyway, close pop-up, okay? And now we see the answers to all of these questions. Let's update it. All right, and all these answers to that question would come up, okay? So the reviewer's done. The reviewer has looked at this. They've looked through that question. They're going to make a preliminary justification. They're going to say, oops, let me go back here and edit, sorry. They're going to say that the person is, the eligibility category for this person is, we had here intellectual disability, but let's say it's autism spectrum disorder. They can differ, right? You may ask to be made eligible for one waiver, but you qualify for another based on that, okay? If it was denied, you have to tell why it was denied. Eligibility is also something that isn't cut and dry, right? It's not always submitted for approval and approved. There might be an evaluation. So this processing status lets you put in here reasons perhaps why it has not been approved yet, right? So that you can track it. So you can say, for example, Leah works with one state where they have to do a lot of reporting on their eligibility determinations. So you have 100 submitted, 50 of them have been approved. What is the status of the other 50? How many are under appeal? How many are waiting for an evaluation? How many are waiting for records? Okay, so if you're not making that determination right away, you want to use that processing status to tell you why, okay? And you could also have here, and again, this drop down, who is the eligibility referred by, all right? So let's update, because we edited it. Now we go back to it. And now we're going to submit for approval. Back to my dashboard. We'll refresh. And we'll come down here to eligibility. And you see now we have one prompt next to pending approval. And I click on that. And here's that one for old boy Royce. And we're going to open that up. Now, the approver is going to go in. Again, they could return it to the reviewer at this point. hey, it's missing information, hey, you missed this, whatever. Let's edit it. All right, and so now the approver is going to look at this and they're going to say, okay, they're going to say, nope, the person is eligible for intellectual disability. The effective date is today. And I'm going to leave it open-ended. The outcome is the lone drop-down field that is not configurable by the user. This is a default stable drop-down: eligible, not eligible, undetermined, or withdrawn. We're going to say the individual is eligible, and the processing status is eligibility process complete. In a justification, we could write, Royce meets all eligibility requirements. All right. And we update. Go back to the form and approve. We get an attestation. Make sure you want to approve this. The information is verified and is true and accurate. We say yes. Okay. Let's go back here. Refresh that. That pending approval should be down to 0. So we have a few here that are in draft. Let's look at these. And we have this one for Jer. All right. So let's edit this. All right, what do we have? Let's just go ahead and update. And I'm going to submit for review. Go back to my first page, update. I have one here for pending review. I'm going to click on that. Now I'm the reviewer. Step 2 of 3. I read through this. All right. And I say, no attachments are on this form. I can't make a decision without them. At the very least, please add the documents noted as required. All right, and I'm going to return this. Go back to my dashboard. Let's refresh. And now you see I have one under returned. So this goes back to the submitter. All right. Now the submitter can come in here. Again, they're probably going to edit. And let's just add a document for the sake of it. All right. Update. And now submit for review. Few things. One is, right now, you can only have one template at a time, so one eligibility template. But any one individual can have more than one eligibility at a time. So you could have somebody who has, say like you have 5 categories of eligibility. You could have a person have all 5 concurrently. So you can do multiple eligibilities for the same person. Okay. The search is very robust. All right. So, you can choose by eligibility category, show me all the related disability and traumatic brain injury eligibilities. Show me all the ones that are under appeal. All right. Show me all the ones that were referred or court ordered, or show me all the ones that are returned to reviewer. It's a management tool, right? So you can kind of look and try and find out why certain things are where they are. All right. Here, I text my wife, try to call me. All righty. So you have all that kind of stuff. Again, very robust search. Let's clear everything and search. So we're doing a broad search. So again, you have all of these. All right, even here, I can use the filter. I do a broad search and I say, all right, show me all the ones that are for a traumatic brain injury. And the 3 that have to do with traumatic brain injuries are there. Show me all the ones where the outcome is withdrawn, none. How many where the outcome is undetermined? Huh? I've got 4. And how many are related disability? All right, and all those show up. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Show me all of the ones for Royce. Right. All right, I'm going to pause here for a moment. Leah, have we had any questions submitted?
We have not.
All right.
We welcome your questions, should you have any.
Yes. All right. Well, we have some time here. Let's go into that questionnaire. So I did mention that you could have a questionnaire attached to the eligibility document. So let's take a look at the questionnaire. Okay. And we can create one. All right. You give that questionnaire a name. Okay, and we save it. Save that name. All right. And then you add your question. All right. So give it. So what is the title? So what is the question? All right. You give it a question number. You can make the answer required. Okay. And you can also give a hint from the in the 1020, 1031, 9 YZ form. Okay. Tell them where to get the information from. And then you choose the answer type. So you'll see here, boom, numeric, text, multi-line text, date, drop down, attachment. Again, checkbox, multiple answers. Let's do a drop down. We save it. Okay, and now we answer the question options. Approved. Not approved. And in process. All right. And then you just do that. And you can add, add as many questions as you'd like. I don't know as if there's a limit to the number of questions. I've seen one with about 200. The only restriction I'm aware of is when it comes to things like a drop down or a checkbox, is you can only have 50 answers. So sometimes we've had to divide it up to different questions. We do like A through N and then, or A through M and then N through Z or something along those lines, but be creative with it. But 50 is a lot, so it's not, it's pretty high. But when you start doing like, I don't know, in some instances we do like counties, for example, right? I don't know. I live in New York. We have 64 counties. I don't know. Rhode Island has 5. South Carolina has about 30. It depends on where you live. But you can, you kind of do it that way. School districts, sometimes, Rhode Island uses school districts, so there's about 85 of those. God only knows how many there are in New York, probably 1,000. But anyway, so you kind of have to. And we find too is that it's worth it, particularly if it's data you're going to use with a questionnaire. It's worth it to spend the time making those drop downs, because the lazy man's answer would be make it a text box, right? Right. Well, one of the counties in New York is Cattaraugus. How many different ways do you think there are to spell Cattaraugus? Right. I'd rather get good data and spend the time, doing the drop downs than not. Okay. That's that on questionnaires. Let's go look at the report library. See what we have. Okay. So we have an eligibility expiry report. So when does eligibility expire? Show me all the eligibilities that expire on or before today. And aren't any? Well, you see that you could be able to do that. And then the oversight report on eligibility data. You can see that. what I showed you was a closed eligibility system. Two of our states, South Carolina and South Dakota, do something different. So let's go here to eligibility, and let's do new here. And choose Marcus. Now what they do in those states is they fill in the request date, requested category, then they come down here and they send it to the provider, the link provider, right? In order for that to show up, Marcus has to be admitted in that. So they would send it to the provider, and then the provider, in this instance, the case management provider, attaches all these documents, okay? And then they send it back to the state, and the state reviews and approves. So that's another option. Again, we don't know a lot about folks that are on the call, whether you're a large multi-state organization or a state or just an individual provider. So we would save that, update it, and then send the provider. And then after the provider sends it back, it follows the same process. All right, well, that concludes what I wanted to show all of you about eligibility. Leah, was there anything you'd like to add?
I don't have anything particular to add. You definitely covered all the points that I was thinking of and more. But I will go ahead and share with you all the link to the eligibility overview page. And once we convert this recording, it will be added to that listing of recorded webinars at the bottom of the eligibility overview page. The thing that I like about those overview pages that we have on our help and support site is most of them start with a diagram that displays the workflow. And I think that that's really helpful to introduce you to a module in Therap if you're new to it.